Hey, hello everyone. Hi, thank you all so much for coming out tonight and joining us. My name is Amali and I'm the events director here at Books Are Magic. What a beautiful day it is to live in New York. Tonight we take a break from celebrating last night's incredible historic mayoral election, and instead we take a moment to celebrate the debut cookbook launch from the beloved NYC restaurant King, with owners Clare de Boer, Jess Shadbolt, and Annie Shee, in conversation with Christine Mulkey. Before we dive in, I just have a few logistics to point out for how tonight's event is going to go. First, we will be doing a hand-raised audience Q&A towards the end of the discussion, so please start thinking of questions to ask and hold on to them. After the talk tonight, our trio of authors will be around to sign and personalize your books at the alcove next to where you checked in. We'll let you know where and when to start lining up for that. And finally, if you're joining us virtually on the YouTube live stream, we would love to encourage you to buy a copy of the King Cookbook online using the link in the live stream description. Okay, now I can introduce the incredible woman that you see in front of you. Clare de Boer is a 5-time James Beard nominated chef and writer. She's the owner of Stissing House and co-owner of King, but is most often found in her home kitchen cooking for her husband and 4 sons. Clare writes about food for the New York Times and Vogue and has the bi-monthly recipe newsletter, The Best Bit. She lives between Brooklyn and upstate New York. Jess Shadbolt shared her first stove with her mother. In 2016, she moved to New York City. She's the co-owner and chef of King, now her home away from home. When she's out of the kitchen, she can be found cooking for her friends and family, either in Fort Greene, Brooklyn, or on Aldeburgh Beach on the Suffolk coast in the UK. I hope you didn't butcher that. Annie Shee is the restaurateur behind acclaimed restaurants King, which was named the top 10 of New York Times 2025 best restaurants in New York City, Jupiter at Rockefeller Center, and Lay, a wine bar of her own in Chinatown. A Forbes 30 Under 30 honoree, Annie has been featured in publications including Food and Wine, Vogue, and New York Magazine. She lives in New York City with her husband and 2 children. And as I mentioned earlier, Christine Mulkey is the moderator for tonight's conversation. Christine is the founder of Bureau X Food Consultancy and the X Team newsletter, a former editor at Bon Appetit and the New York Times. She has written books with Eric Ripert, David Kinch, and Le Bernardines Aldo Somme. Their new book, Wine Simple Perfect Pairings, is out November 18th. That's all for me. Please join me in giving tonight's guests a very warm welcome.
This is like such a big week. Can I just say they were on the Today Show this morning and Michelle Obama walked through the green. Yesterday. It feels like today. So big week for you. Congratulations on the beautiful book and the beautiful restaurants. All of them. So you said that you met in London, but where? Because, I mean, you grew up in the US, you went to college in the US.
I guess I'll answer this one. So I met Claire first through a mutual friend who I was living with in London and who had gone to college with Claire. And Jess and Claire were working together at the River Cafe. And so that was kind of how we all got together. I did play hooky one afternoon to have lunch at the River Cafe, and that's when I first met Jess.
So how did you get from that to, hey, let's move to New York and open a restaurant?
Good time as well. Well, so Annie and I started a supper club in my mum's apartment, and I had a boyfriend that I was trying to make my way back to. And you had a finance job you were trying to escape. And so we thought we might try and do our supper club pop-up over here. Thankfully that didn't work out. We were looking at some really dodgy spaces and realized that you couldn't run a business in this city by opening sort of once a month. And so it evolved, I think, over a 6-month period, trying to work out how, to take a next step and what that would look like. And when we decided a restaurant could possibly make sense, although it never really did on paper at any point. Jess was looking for her next move as well, and decided to move over and throw caution to the wind.
Wow. It was a big leap. How did your parents feel about your pivot from finance?
Not great. I don't think they understood that the type of restaurant we were trying to create. Obviously, as every immigrant family does, my father's first job when he moved to America was making dumplings at a Chinese takeout spot, where he delivered, got held up at gunpoint, all of that. So he was like, "You're trying to do what?" So, you know, I think he's only recently, they've come around that I'm not going back to finance. But once they saw King and once they tasted the food, I think they realized that it was something special.
Amazing. I also love you say in the book that he built all the tables by hand.
Yes, we had very little money. Obviously not a lot of takers for 3 people without any experience in restaurants in New York City. So my parents, my dad did build the tables. Jess was grouting the kitchen floor. Claire's mom was designing the restaurant via Zoom and on the back of napkins. It was a family affair.
Wow. And so which restaurants inspired you, either when you were in London, I'm really hogging this, you know, or growing up? Did you ever think, is this why you got into restaurants? Because you wanted to open your own?
Well, not for me, no. I mean, I kind of fell into the restaurant world by way of L'Oreal, as you know, all the typical routes. And always, you know, definitely loved and ended up working at the River Cafe and kind of ended up there as Ruthie and Rose's assistant for many years before kind of going to Valley Blue and coming back into the kitchen. But yeah, I think the joy of we were always captivated. I think all of us loved great restaurants and were fortunate enough to sort of experience some of those great dining moments. And I think, you know, we had an idea of wanting to do that and create something like those restaurants that inspired us. And I think we just had, I don't know, the naivety of youth to just go out there and do it. I can't believe we did now looking back, but it was, I don't know, it wasn't a kind of a traditional, a road or approach to opening a restaurant.
And lucky you. But what was on your actual sort of mood, putting the mood in mood board? What did you want to evoke, or what were restaurants that you were taking elements of that you wanted people to experience?
I think just a classic, I think everyone asked us when we were opening, what's the concept? And that was sort of a brand new thing for us. We were it's a restaurant, you know, I think we really just wanted to keep it very simple and very classic. And they were what's your signature dish? And we were well, the menu's going to change every day, so there isn't one. And you know, there wasn't, the parameters was so kind of wide. We just wanted it to be really kind of, classic and simple and, you know, authentic, and obviously seasonally led and produce driven, all those things that are now so typical. But I don't think it was much more than that. Perhaps I was wrong.
No, I think at the time when we were opening King, there wasn't a lot of sort of very European style restaurants here. There were Italian restaurants, but in London at the time, you know, you had the River Cafe, you had St. John, you had Rochelle Canteen, you had Brat, you had Braun. There were all these places that just served simple European food with daily changing menus, and that was our North Star. And you know, we always said, had we opened this in England, it would have been crickets. It would have been another, something that really kind of fit in with what was going on there. And we opened at a really interesting time in New York when we were one of the first in this category, one of the first of its kind. And now we're so lucky. There's tons of incredible restaurants that are small and sort of soulful and change their menu all the time. But I think 9 years ago, that we were sort of at the beginning of that style coming over from London.
Yeah, and I think then it was kind of the big guys. You know, it was 2016. It was the major food groups. It was the kind of, it was the large restaurants, and they were big and noisy and sexy and dark, and it was a kind of, a big night out. And then we just, opened this little, owner chef run restaurant that was relatively, I don't know, kind of unique at that point. Obviously now it's very different, but I think that was quite unknown, at the time.
Cool. And what did you learn at River Cafe and even at Ballymaloo? Because there's at Ballymaloo at the restaurant, there's such generosity and scale.
This is the thing. Well, I don't know. I feel really lucky to have seen Ruthie and Rose operate both as chefs and as restaurateurs, both from working with them for 5 years in the office and sort of the back of house, and listening to conversations that exceeded just the food and the kitchen. So, from the way they were thinking about looking after their staff, the way they were thinking about their customers, and the way they were thinking about the space, and the way they were thinking about cookbooks. And, I was very lucky to kind of have access to that thought process. And then obviously went to Ballymaloo, and to come back from there and to kind of witness the powerhouse that is Dorina Allen. The first recipe you learn at Ballymaloo is the recipe for compost. And so, she sort of teaches you that without, a great, the great land and a great compost, like how can you grow great ingredients? And of course, that's sort of the whole ethos. And then coming back to the cafe and being in the kitchen and seeing it from a different, like a completely different kind of aspect, from within the kitchen. It was, the way that they change the menu daily, of course, and the recipes and the stylistic approach to the food, but also how they operate as chefs and collaborate. And I could go on for days.
I think at the River Cafe, I guess I learned to move. You learn sort of. I would say that I learned just how to be a chef and get a lot done in a very little amount of time. And I think it's becoming harder and harder to get that education in kitchens because everything is very different. And there's obviously a lot that needed to change from sort of old school chefy chef hierarchical kitchens. There's also a lot of value in being at the bottom of the pecking order and getting your ass kicked. And I think the unique thing about the River Cafe versus a lot of other restaurants is that sort of every cook that was above you could almost run an entire restaurant in another context. Like the quality of the cooks there, everyone was incredible and everyone was a leader. And to be amongst those people and to be at the bottom and to be able to watch and learn from everyone ahead of you and be under a lot of pressure, I think is incredibly valuable.
I think also you make a really good point. Like, I think when we got to New York, and this, obviously at the River Cafe, famously the servers or the waiters prep something. They sort of grate the parmesan and they peel the chilies and they prep the anchovies, and so Claire and I were like, oh, and then we'll have the servers help us with that prep. And then Annie's there going, no, there are labour laws against that. And we were like, right, back to the... And we had to get prep cooks. And we didn't know what this concept of a prep cook was. And we didn't really understand what a line cook was. And, and because for us, we were taught that you cook the food and you work the service and then you clean down at the end of the night and you do the whole kind of spectrum of this thing, and so it was like a kind of a complete remodel for us in terms of having to find cooks to, we would be like, oh, make a soup or make a risotto, and they were like, well, I'm just a line cook, I don't really know what that is, and it was amazing. It was such a great kind of, and so when we found our people who, we were lucky. We had some cooks that even to this day are still with us, knocked on the back door with their knives and were like, want to learn to cook like this, and we were like, we don't have any recipes, and we're like, I still want to be here, and we're like, okay, great, now we do. But yeah, it was a very different approach, which was a really fun part of it.
Amazing. And is it true that they didn't have a pastry section at River Cafe until the fire?
When we were there, everybody, when we were there, it didn't, whether it was your first day or you were a senior cook, you were making dessert, whether or not you had any training, which was great. But because of the labour laws, you...
I don't
You all worked 18 hours a day. No, you got to work double shifts, and I think this is a really important thing, because you would arrive in the morning for your shift at 8 or 9 or whatever, and you would begin by receiving and gutting the fish and breaking down the meat and making ice cream, which needed time to freeze, and then you would close your day, you would go through dinner service, and then you would clean down. And so you got to, as a very young cook who's never seen anything, anything at a professional level before, in a very short period of time, you are given an education that you could not pay for, and you also could not get in a different situation. So I think being given the opportunity to work and learn from amazing people and work double shifts.
We tried this model. We tried the pastry thing again. We were like, oh, no one can cook pastry. It's really crap. So the chocolate cake one day wouldn't work, and then the next day the pastry. We were like, I think we need a pastry cook.
I think the cat came around to the same time.
The patty consistency is important.
Well, you talk about your naivete. I mean, we first met, you came to New York in April, I guess, of 2016 or May to cook with Ruthie and the River Cafe for the Edible Schoolyard benefit, which you've headlined now at this point. But she's like, oh, you have to meet Jess and Clare. They're wonderful. They work for me, and they're opening a restaurant in New York in October. And Louisa, who's here, we were like, yeah, see you in 2020, never. Like, good job. And you did it. Like, you actually opened on time, which... So my question is, how did your naivete protect you?
I think there's something really great about naivete, because if we were all super aware of all the challenges that were ahead of us, we would probably take far fewer risks. And I think that's definitely true of restaurants. I think if we knew how hard it would be when we actually got our doors open, we may never have even gotten to the starting line. But we opened on time because we had to. We had no choice. Like, we had no money. I think our friends and family service was just samples that distributors had given us. We had to borrow pots and pans from our families' homes. Like, it was really down to the wire.
The gas went on at 4, and Annie made us open that night. She was like, we have to open, because even if it's like for 12 people, we'll get some money. And yeah, so we literally did open that evening.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah. So what were the you can pick 2 or 3, the biggest challenges?
It was rubbish.
The 2 or 3 biggest challenges of opening?
Or just running a restaurant, never having done it before.
I think one was construction, fundraising, design. All that was really challenging. Like, none of us had project managed a construction site before in New York City, or dealt with permitting, or dealt with landlords. All of that was so hard, and to do it with no money was even harder. And then I remember the feeling of like the joy of like finishing construction and the sinking pit in my stomach of like, now we have to open our doors, and then like the doors are open and you can never really take it back. And that was like a real like, oh shit moment.
And what was surprisingly easy? You're like, oh, everybody says that's so hard, but that wasn't hard at all.
The cooking part.
I think what was really, I think we were so fortunate because there were 3 of us. I think there was such like, for me personally, it's like there was such like confidence in being a group of 3, and it, we just sort of went for it because we were like, well, we think it's great, and like, it didn't really matter what everyone else necessarily, of course it did, but like there was a real kind of bravery in numbers, and I think that is kind of when you're young and you're kind of have that willingness to just take the leap. But I think for me, I was like, I would have only have done it because there were the 3 of us and having that kind of momentum.
Amazing. And how did you develop the opening menu? Were you overthinking it, or were you really, this is our vision, or were you like, wait, do New Yorkers want that?
Do you know where the opening menu was written? It was outside. What was that? What's that coffee shop? La Colombe on Prince, and we eventually worked out what samples we were getting free from Chef's Warehouse or whatever. And we just wrote it on the back of literally a fag packet, I think, at that point. One of us was smoking at the time, and that's
Yeah,
how.
all of us.
We didn't know what we were like. Well, what's at the market that day? And like, genuinely, that is exactly where we sat and wrote the menu, and for that day. And then the next day was another challenge. So.
What were some of your non-negotiable dishes? Like this is going to be on it, or it's going to stay.
I don't think we really went in with that mentality. I think we were really opposed to the this is our signature dish thing. And what emerged was the panisse and the chocolate cake, the carta. But I don't think we were even that particularly attached to any of it. And we hadn't rehearsed it 1,000 times. Panisse is now perfect every time. It was like dodgy every other time for several years. I think we made it for like the third or fourth time when we were opening, and we were making it in little batches, and often they'd go wrong, and we would, it wasn't particularly like choreographed or dialed in.
Actually, there should be a note or credit in the cookbook under panisse for Clare Welly. She was one of our cooks, and she figured out how to set it in a pan. And yeah, that recipe actually now does work, which we're thrilled about. So please let us know if you. But I think, and I remember one of the opening dishes we did pot au feu, which is in the book. No one liked it.
I loved it.
It got food off the menu.
Yeah.
The opening servers really didn't like the food or kind of understand
That's
it.
because none of it stuck around. We would 86 dishes like left, right, and center, and just had these angry guests being like, "What do you mean half the menu is not available?"
Annie would be like, "Can you make enough food for service tonight?" And we were like, "Yes." And halfway through the night, we'd be like, "No."
Amazing. Were there any dishes like the pot au feu that you kind of had to get New Yorkers used to?
So many. Skate is a big one. It's a fish that's obviously super popular in the UK, but we had to teach people how to eat it so that they weren't cutting through the bone. It was scraping against the grain, little things like that. That was a big one.
Rabbit.
Yeah,
Rabbit, which is there's a whole chapter in the book on rabbit, and we kind of had to fight for it on the menu and keeping it there in the restaurant, but also with the publisher. They were like, "Can't you just do chicken?" We were like, "Please, can we do rabbit?"
Working in food magazines, every time you publish rabbit, you would just get a slew of hate mail.
Yeah.
They were just ready.
But I think it was that people that actually now that everyone, people love to see it on the menu, and we were really glad that we got that chapter in, because I think of course you can substitute chicken and it's just as tasty, but I think it's really synonymous with cooking, and we love to cook it, and I think there's so many versions of it. And,
We actually have guests who come specifically when we have rabbit on the menu.
Oh my gosh, how do they know?
They check the Instagram, and because she comes after work, she's a solo diner at the bar. She was at our book party yesterday, and it has its own following.
Wow, yeah, the fried in the book, there aren't a lot of photos in the book, but the fried rabbit looks really good. So things were a little slow at the beginning. How did you get the word out, or how did you get that moving?
I think you did that.
Or any and Louisa, or any advice you have to restaurateurs, like hiring PR, word of mouth, what really moved the needle?
I think finding the right clientele. We got on an eater list early when we opened, and there was a queue out the door, and we got terrible reviews and ratings from everyone that came in because they were not the right fit. And it's a small restaurant with not that many seats, and the people who are in those seats should be the right customers. So I think it was really moving away from the wrong kind of hype and finding the right people to explain in the right way what we were trying to do, so as to put off the people that would not be interested in our offering, and to find a group of people that really loved it.
I mean, we talk about this a lot, but it really was the P. Wells review that really helped contextualize the food, and the number of guests that came in after that review that were like, "Oh my God, we love the River Cafe. We didn't know you were here." and really understood what we were trying to do, that was a really big turning point for us.
Yeah, that was, well, we went in once, Pete Wells, and he liked it, but then he didn't review
What a
it.
roll of veal chop.
And then we were he took me to some other place that was like amazing female chefs, but very modern and kind of gimmicky. And I was like, Pete, it's like it's food on a plate in a room, and isn't that kind of what you want right now? Isn't that good? Because no one else is doing that. He's like, oh god, that sounds really great. And then we went back, and he totally fell in love. And I feel like there were like four other tables. I feel like there were like 4 other tables, 5 other tables. But it was so magical just to be cooked for in that way and not be sold a concept or told how to eat everything, or like there's not, what was it Alison Roman said in her book, like it's not putting a hat on a hat. Which is really great. So when did you finally feel like, okay, this is good, we're gonna make it?
Then, I think. But I think that review thing, we really wrote we each wrote like a Pete Wells review, and we used it as a real kind of, you know, what is it like that we want him to know and to understand and to see. And I think and so much of that was sort of came out in that, and I mentioned that to say that I think we were just really, while it sounds like we didn't know what we were doing, we had a really clear vision of what we wanted it to look like, and who was going to be in the room, and what they were going to be drinking, and what the table looked like, and what the music was, and what the flowers were, and I think that was, and what we wanted to cook, and I think that was just the only thing we did know, right? We didn't know about labor laws, we didn't know about prep cooks, we didn't know where to buy half-farm ingredients, and we didn't know, you know, we didn't know any of that, but we did know, okay, this is what it's going to look like, and I think that we just, at every decision, we just came back to that, and I think that was part of, helped us just keeping on the straight and narrow, and we do that to this day now, and we never tried to deviate from it, and I think that has been part of making King what it is.
Yeah, authenticity is, let's more of that, please. But also, you describe it in such a lovely way in the book, is when you were first coming up with the idea, just wanting it to be a place where people would come and then they would stay a couple hours longer than they thought they were going to, and there'd be, you know, rings on the table from the wine glasses and maybe some grappa glasses and gloops of olive oil, and it's so what you've built. So how has the community evolved over the last almost 10 years?
I mean, we saw yesterday actually some of our original regulars, and their daughter is now in college, and their daughter was 8 years old when she started coming to King, and so really, I mean, we couldn't believe it. It's totally insane, but it has been amazing to see that community grow. There's a whole slew of new regulars that kind of moved into the neighborhood post-COVID, so we're still in touch with a lot of our original regulars who now live in Connecticut or upstate or moved to California, but there are a lot of new faces as well.
Yeah, it was amazing how many times you had to change course during COVID. It was just you get whiplash.
Yeah.
Your QR codes, and you can't do this, or we're gonna do takeout, or we've got a shed, now we can't have a shed, and it was just really admirable how you weathered every different decision, because it really felt kind of make or break.
There's a couple of great things that came out of COVID, one of which was our raclette window, which people still ask us if we're going to bring back. We're like, we can't bring that back. But there is raclette soup in the cookbook, which is our nod to that particular phase of King's life.
Amazing. And the cafe has been great for anyone who hasn't gone. It's there through the 8th. I'm going to, yeah. It's been so great, and also it's a different community, right? And to also show off the pastries and the baked goods, and to torture the barista with the hoji cha and the matcha, which is so good. Okay, so this is such a great book. It's unusual. It's very confident. It's not based on a lifestyle platform or vibe. It's for real cooking. So what was your decision to go that route? There aren't a ton of photos. there are like a couple photos of you, but it's not like, here's my dress.
I think all of our
Like to
favorite
buy.
cookbooks are like, I mean, it was a conversation we had. We're like, it's a cookbook. It's not like the King memoirs. Not that we would ever want to write that, but we wanted it to be about the food and the restaurant, and that's true of all the cookbooks we love best.
I think also restaurant cookbooks kind of get a hard rap because often they're not particularly accessible. You know, I don't know if you guys find that, but you know, it kind of feels out of reach, and everyone, you know, King, well, often people say to us, you know, oh, this, I don't know, braised pumpkin is so delicious, how do you make it? And I'm like, it's so easy, like it's embarrassing how easy it is, like really honestly. And they're like, no, and you're like, no, really it is. And so, you know, what's so lovely, I think, is that the food at King is so recreatable, it's not even a word, in your own kitchen. And I think that that's like at the heart of it. We're like, you honestly trust us, can make this at home. And there's, you know, the pantry section is sort of where we kick things off, just to kind of give you a real like 360 of the tools that we use. And then there's sort of this whole kind of toolbox section about like, what do we call that section? Foundational recipes, blanched greens and cooking beans and all of this, and sauces. So it's like, even those three kind of chapters alone, you can do so much. And it really is so transferable to a home cook. And this kind of cooking, we didn't reinvent it. Like, this is kind of cooking that has been going on in like homes across you know, Europe, France and Italy in particular for centuries. You know, like the nonnas and the grand-mères, they've been doing it. Like, this isn't something new, and we've just sort of distilled it through a different lens, but you like, it's so approachable at home too. And that's what I think is exciting, because it's like, and it really remains true to King as well.
I was also gonna say, I feel like we hired a lot of because we knew nobody. We hired a lot of cooks who really didn't have much cooking experience, and so I think what you see in the book is also like how Jess and Clare would teach these new line cooks to learn how to cook King food. And we never had it down like this. It was always like, we never had really recipes, but I think that process of like living with these recipes and having to teach new line cooks how to cook, it is amazing, because that's what this cookbook really is.
Okay, we're gonna move to questions in a second, but I have to ask. So, Jess, I know you love Desert Island Discs too,
yeah.
but we're more Kirsty Young people era. So you can take one dish with you from this cookbook to the desert island. The others are gonna be washed away by the waves. What are you gonna take?
What are you guys gonna take? Are we on the same desert island?
No, different islands. You're okay.
Yeah. Okay, different islands. I don't know. What are you taking?
I think it's either the pot au feu, which truly is my favorite
Yeah,
dish.
keep going, that.
Yeah. Or the pissolatier.
Oh, nice. Mine would probably be.
I'd probably do the herbete, just greens and olive
With
oil.
lots of olive oil.
And chili and fennel seeds.
That would be your one luxury, olive oil.
Maybe the fish stew. You know, use what you have.
Oh, there
Make
you
it really good.
go. So thank you so much, and congratulations again on a really
Thank you.
amazing book. And we have questions. I don't know who's in charge of the microphone.
Just in case up there.
What are your other favorite cookbooks in your own kitchen, or what you actually like to cook from?
The question is, what are your other favorite cookbooks in your kitchen, and what do you like to cook from?
I love the Simon Hopkinson Roast Chicken and Other Stories. It's such a great little cookbook. Every recipe is incredible. It's the best roast chicken recipe of all time. It's a great read.
I mentioned this the other day, but it's true. I'm really in a Keith Floyd era, and I think he's really new to American audiences. I'm on a bit of a hype tour for him. He's dead now, but he is such a fun writer and cook, and was sort of one of the first to kind of go out there and sort of toot the horn of this kind of cooking. And he used to cook in a bow tie, which I respect.
I've not really traveled anywhere since having kids, and Giuliano Bugiali is this Italian guy, and he has these cookbooks that are like this big, with the most incredible retro photographs and hyper regional dishes, and so they're very escapist. They're things you won't necessarily find. You won't necessarily even be able to get the ingredients to cook, but he'll sort of photograph them in a piazza. Someone will be holding a giant platter of pasta out of frame. It's just incredible. It's food photography like that's kind of dead, and recipes that are that esoteric. I don't necessarily, they're not necessarily going to be something you're going to cook, but it's very inspiring.
Wow. When was that published?
Oh, I don't know. I got all of my books from him I think they might be out of print.
Amazing. Wow. Learning so much. Anyone else?
So you write the menu every day. Has there ever been a day where you've been stumped?
For the live streamers, you write the menu every day. Is there ever been a time when you've been stumped?
Normally when we've forgotten to do the ordering the night before. Or like there's, all the time, actually. And normally it would take the shape of really, it's not like a brand new dish every single day. It's a sort of a variation of something, but it would definitely start, traditionally with what we fancied for dinner. What's the weather like outside, and what, and truthfully, like what's left in the fridge from the night before. And more often than not, we would put something on the menu, a new dish, and like the first ticket would come through, put it on a plate and be like, is this a dish? Is this a dish? It happens all the time, but we've got into a bit of a better rhythm now.
I would love to hear the story of how you came on the name King.
How did you come up with the name King?
Well, we were on King Street, and it was actually Luke, Claire's husband's idea. And at first we're like, wait, but do we like it? Do we hate it? And I think the more we thought about it, so much of King is so European inspired, but there's also something so quintessentially New York, and we really wanted to honor that and like the corner of New York City that we inhabited. So that was the decision to have the name King. The rule was, though, there could be no royalty imagery, no crowns, none of that. So it was also then finding Robert Alvarez, who's done all of our branding to really make it come alive.
He's done all the incredible, he's done the cover, and he's done all the incredible artwork in the book as well. His drawings are throughout.
What advice do you have for a home cook who's just sort of like uninspired, needs revigorating in the kitchen?
Advice for the home cook.
Or
Skip
dish.
breakfast. Skip breakfast.
What, that'll get your taste buds?
Yeah.
Put more olive oil on everything?
I really think it's just like, that's good actually, skip breakfast. But I think also like just go to the market or your local store and just like find one thing that is exciting for you, whether it's like a head of, I don't know, Romanesco or a really nice handful of leaves or I don't know, fun looking pumpkin. Like just find the one thing and then take it from there and don't overthink it.
I think also like a nice pantry will make it so much easier for you to cook when you're feeling uninspired, and that's so much, the bones of this cookbook is if you kind of have like people ask why King food tastes so good, it's because the pantry's excellent. And if you have great anchovies and great olive oil and great salt and blah blah blah, like it makes it much easier to cook delicious food at home.
What are your go-to meals for yourself at home that are like easy, or maybe on the weekends you have a little bit more time and can kind of
I'm going through a massive Peter Pocket phase at the moment. Like Peter Pockets.
Oh, okay.
And I had three for lunch today, the little ones with all various. It was like an omakase. And I had my first with really good Berda Barat and Cabot cloth brown cheddar, just those two things. I had my next one stuffed like super dense with arugula, like compressed, and then with like a wedge of lemon, I served it on top like that for myself and squeezed it over. And then I had my third one just plain back to butter. But yeah, really fabulous.
I'm in a bit of an egg in a cup phase. Like, is that a thing here? No. Okay. It's like an egg entrecôte. Like my grandma used to make it, and chuck a bit of frozen spinach in there, and then bread, nutmeg, a couple of eggs, butter it, chuck it in the oven, and it's just literally like a hug from your granny. But that, that's when I just want something tasty, but can't be bothered to do anything.
I'm very guilty because I have the incredible luxury right now of having my mom cook for me, which I feel really bad for saying, but she lives 45 minutes away on a weekly basis, drops off freshly made dumplings, frozen dumplings, cucumbers, like the whole shebang. So I am sad to say that I have not cooked very much at all this year, but that has been.
How do we get this? Yeah, we have a delivery program.
I'm sorry. You can get it. Yeah. So that is my home.
What's your favorite dumpling?
She makes a shrimp, pork, and chive one. That is really good. That was this week's flavor. She last week did pork and cabbage, which is also amazing.
There's time for one more question.
I have one question about like the business side of running a restaurant, like the impacts of inflations and tariff. What is the impact of them? Like
Inflation, tariff,
operations of Kings?
impact, go. Wine.
Olive oil, all of it. I mean, it is much more expensive to run a restaurant today than it was 9 years ago. I think like everyone feels it, right? Like you guys probably feel it when you go out to eat and you're like, I sneezed and I spent $100. The unfortunate reality is like that's not even really passing on the true cost of the price increases. Like everyone's holding off at every level as much as we all can so that the consumer, you guys don't feel it. But it is an issue. And I think we don't have like a good answer for what it looks like. I think we're just doing our best and like trying to be creative with sourcing, going to the farmers, finding new vendors, tasting new wine from other places, in an effort to not have to increase prices more.
There's also sort of some what's the word, like comfort in the fact that everyone is struggling. Like we so often have these conversations with other restaurateurs, like the really good ones as well, and they're like, God, profit, like it's almost impossible. And at the moment, it feels like every business is just washing its face. And we've had to pivot and think, at the cafe, like, is there other ways of like using the space, like creatively to kind of really kind of get it, open for another lunch service. Like, it doesn't necessarily trickle down to like more at the end, but yeah, you just have to get really, really, really creative. But it's really hard for everyone, which is both terrifying but also comforting.
Wait, is that your agent?
No, I'm a publicist. Where do you get rabbit in New York?
I was gonna ask that. I thought that was too granular, but yeah, it's hard to find. I mean, you can find it frozen, but yeesh.
There's the butcher just right around here next to Fishtails, Paisanos.
Oh, awesome.
Paisanos has it, and if you call ahead, they can defrost it. And in the spring, they actually have it in their fridge as well as the freezer.
So on that note, everyone please give it up.
Thank you all all so much for joining us. Thank you to everyone who asked questions. Thank you to Christine for moderating such a wonderful conversation. And thank you to Claire and Annie and Jess for celebrating this launch with us. So just some final reminders before we all wrap up and head home. If you're still with us on the live stream, you can buy a copy by clicking the link in the description. For those of you with us tonight, if you haven't gotten a copy of the King Cookbook yet, we've got plenty of additional copies available for purchase at the registry where you checked in. We also have copies of Wine Simple, and in 2 weeks, you should come back for Wine Simple Perfect Pairings. Jess and Annie and Claire will all be around to sign and personalize your books. That's going to be happening in the back, right where my coworker Alexa is pointing while holding all of those many books. It'll make a little bit more sense in a moment. We're just going to ask that you all sit tight while we get them set up back there. And then please make sure to grab all of your personal belongings with you. Line up down the center aisle, curve around to the wall, and please be mindful of our staff who will be coming around to pack up all the chairs and rearrange the bookstore, because this is not what it looks like usually during the day. That's all for tonight. Let's give all of these wonderful guests a round of applause. Thank you all.